Welcome to Mental Health Crisis in Our Time. My name is Ann Bergen. I am the host of this series of programs whose purpose is to shed light on the mental health crisis in America. It is impacting all ages, all geographic areas, all socioeconomic levels. It is truly an epidemic. Anxiety, depression, suicide are evidence of the pain of so many. We are seeing incidents of mass shootings, substance misuse, domestic violence. It is, again, a crisis. But what is really interesting is that researchers have now found, have begun to study those people who flourish, those people who end up having happy, fulfilled lives. And one of the factors that they found, which I found really intriguing, is that those people who find a purpose, have a cause that they value, where they're contributing to the good of society, they found a cause bigger than themselves. Those are the people who end up having really happy, fulfilled lives, no matter even if they've experienced tremendous amount of trauma in their lives. So they found that this extraordinary research that has come out. So that is why I wanted to interview my guest today, who is this remarkable young woman. She is a source of inspiration to me, a role model for other young people. Abigail Drake is her name. She is the recipient of the Gold Award, which is the highest achievement, the most prestigious award in Girl Scouts USA. Only 5.4% of girls earn this distinctive award. It is described as the mark of the truly remarkable. So we are lucky, Abigail, to have you with us today. Thank you. I know you're very humble and I know this isn't, but it's really important, I think, that we point this out to people, that the importance of finding, this cause or something that you want to work toward. But before we talk about your specific project, I want to learn how you got there to, achieve this award. Will you tell us when your involvement began in Girl Scouts and what made you kind of stay there?
Yeah, so I kind of joined early on. I was I think 4 or 5 years old in Daisies, and I've been doing Girl Scouts for 13 years. And a lot of people think that's the only way you can get into Girl Scouts, but you can actually join a lot later in life, and it's still
So you don't have to start, you can jump in anywhere along the line, right, is what you're saying.
And
right?
you aren't going to be put in a group of 5-year-olds doing stuff with them. And that's kind of where I started with it, and I always told my troop leaders that I'd be in Girl Scouts the entire way, and I bridged to adulthood a little while ago, and it's kind of been a very big thing in my life. And the Gold Award is kind of always above you in Girl Scouts, and you're always kind of I want to get the next thing. And so I got a Bronze Award, and I eventually was I want to do a Gold Award, so I did.
Okay, so let's talk about, now the Gold Award, we often hear that there's a comparison to sort of the Eagle Scout Award that used to be the Boy Scouts. Is it the same kind of a thing, or what are the requirements for the Gold Award that you met or that you needed to meet?
I've gotten this comparison a ton.
Yeah, talk
I did
to me
an
about
event
that.
At the Harvest Festival, that's what I'd always get, Girl Scout, Eagle Scout, and then I told my advisor, and she was like, nope, it's not.
See, you got to clarify that, yeah. Correct that misperception, please, yes.
Yeah, and so what she told me essentially is that the Eagle Scout Award is really based in community service. And there's a difference in the way that hours are calculated. I've had friends who've gotten it. And mostly it's based in community service. That's the primary thing. Mm-hmm. And then with the Gold Award, it's based around a take action project. That's what they call it. And so you have to make this big project. You have to lead a team involved in it. And you have to essentially find the root cause of an issue and work to solve it. And so with me, I was saying I don't know where to put my clothes when I'm done with them, or any textiles. But there's a law in place that says that I have to throw them away. I have to not throw them away.
All right. So your project is it's essentially called Sustainable Clothes. Is that what the title of it is, or?
Technically, it's called Worn and Torn.
Oh, okay.
which is kind of a fun name that I came up with
I love
before an event.
Worn and torn. Okay, so that here you were, when we start to talk about this project that you created, and it started off with you saying, go back to that again. What am I going to do with all? Talk to me about that.
I was kind of like, what am I going to do with these things? There's a law in place. We aren't doing the pink bags anymore. We used to have a program where we'd put stuff in these pink bags and it'd go off to simple recycling. And I was kind of like, what am I supposed to do? And I realized the root issue of it was just that there wasn't a lot of information out. And when you don't have the information easily accessible for you, the biggest thing that people will talk about in recycling legislation is making it really easily accessible, and so I kind of wanted to talk to people and give out flyers and make these kinds of things available to people.
I think people don't even know that is a law. Because I was talking to my friends here, they said, it is? I mean, it is, right? And the reason for the law is why? Why was that put in place?
Okay, so there's a section of the Mass General Laws.
Yeah.
It is, if I can look at
Sure,
this.
yes.
It is Chapter 16, Section 21, and there are a bunch of other qualifications.
Yeah.
But essentially, the Mass DEP has to make what's called a comprehensive statewide plan that is updated every 10 years. And in November 2022, they updated it again. And basically, they decided that that we can't throw away textiles. They wanted to reduce waste by a certain amount by 2030. And of course, there were also stuff about food waste and mattresses, but if I did that, the project would be massive.
Oh, sure.
And so I focused on the textile part, and so we can't throw away textiles. The Mass DEP said, don't do that. And so I was kind of like, how do I teach people about that? And this is a part of it, This is a part of my project. I wanted to reach out to a bunch of people and tell them about this sort of thing that I found out.
Yeah, so it's, I guess the question, one of the big questions is why should this be important to all of us? I mean, it's important to you. Why is it important that we follow this law, that we find ways that you're going to tell us how we can help? Why is this so important? Is it damaging the environment when we try to talk specifically a little bit about some of the dangers and why they made this a law?
Yeah. So it's a part of the plan because the Mass DEP essentially realized that residents and businesses, this is a quote from them, residents and businesses dispose of approximately 230,000 tons of textiles annually, and that's tons. That's a huge amount.
Sure.
And a lot of that is because of clothing overconsumption. Today it's really popular to use fast fashion, and obviously you don't have to get all your clothes from secondhand stuff and make all of them from your own fibers and stuff. But there are these big companies, and they will make really cheap clothes with really bad labor practices.
Yeah.
So 18-hour work days, even more, 1 day off a month, whatever. And they will basically sell them to be thrown away shortly after they're worn. And sometimes people buy huge amounts from them, and then they'll throw them away. And then while they're in landfills, they will absorb water that could be used for other
that's
things.
what I needed to know. Yeah. Tell me more about that.
And within landfills will give off methane, CH4, which is an even stronger greenhouse gas than CO2. CO2 is everywhere, but methane is really strong.
I heard that methane is the thing that's really killing the environment. Yeah.
It's huge. It's awful. And especially in landfills, they're huge, huge sources of methane. And, of course, Mass is a very small state, so we don't have a lot of room for landfills. So if they're constantly getting filled up, what are we going to do with our garbage in a couple of years? If they're full of clothes that don't need to be thrown away, we're just pointlessly taking up space that could be used for other things. And, of course, clothing has other issues that it causes. When it's produced, it can use fibers from trees that shouldn't be, it can take out forests, and it can, there's a big issue with ruining biodiversity by planting the plants that will produce fibers. In certain areas.
And you know what? But what struck me is something that I never think about, because I tend to overconsume too. I can go on Amazon and you find the cheap product and all that. But you hit on something as well. In addition to the environment and all that, it's the labor practices too. I think, as a young person, for you to identify that and to understand that, we get them cheaply, but at what cost to other human beings, right?
Yeah, there's been like a lot of news out about these big companies, you know, Shein, Halara, etc. Not even just those ones, a lot that use really cheap labor practices in sweatshops in foreign countries, and it's awful. And a lot of the times these people are being borderline abused or straight up abused, and it's kind of terrible. And you know, a part of why it's nice to kind of recycle clothing is because it could open up jobs in this sort of industry of recycling, and it can open up jobs with like secondhand clothing and whatnot. And a lot of these organizations are really charitable, so they can just generally help those in need. I'm going to talk about that when I talk about like the organizations and what they take. But there are a lot of places that do that.
Well, because what I was going to ask you is if you can talk to me about this. Now, I've got a couple of things. Let's say, so I've got a closet full of things that I've only worn a few times that I shouldn't have. Okay, so that's one thing of clothes. And then I have a couple of things that I couldn't give to any place because they're torn or, you know. So help me understand as a consumer, where do I go? What do I do with my clothes that I want to, that I no longer, I have to make room so I can buy more, which is unfortunate. Now, but now that I've talked to you, I've got to rethink what I do. But talk to me about like those two to start. Like what do I do? Where are my options for things like that?
All right, so there are a lot of organizations that'll take things, and generally when they take them, there are like 4 qualities that they're looking for.
Sure.
And the first one is stuff that can go to thrift stores in the U.S. Oftentimes, organizations will have a partnership. That's what Big Brother, Big Sister does. They have a partnership with savers, and they use that money for their mentoring programs. And then there's stuff that isn't good enough for that. And so that stuff is often given to foreign markets that have like different regulations on things, or like they can just ship massive amounts of clothes to them. And so,
can you just clarify, like, what would be the difference between the stuff that I might get, one might give to a thrift store, and then one might be, what's lesser quality? Is it, talk to me about?
I'm not entirely sure,
okay,
honestly,
got it.
because I'm not a part of the organization.
Got it.
That's like the second grade. I'm pretty sure it's usually like not as nice stuff as what they'd give to the thrift stores, and usually it's just if they have like big amounts of clothing, they can ship them somewhere else, and they can be distributed among a bunch of different places in another country.
Okay, got it.
And again, I can't really be fully sure of exactly what grade that'd be, but that would be something that the recycling companies would look for. And then the third category is stuff that could go to secondary markets. And this is what people traditionally think of when they think of recycling. And so that is clothing that can kind of be made into insulation, it can be made into stuffing for cushions, shot rags, etc. And then
where do I bring those? I've got a pile of them today, and I said, what do I do? I have a rip thing. I got it on the floor in a corner, and I've got one I got a stain on. I said, I can't give them to any place. What do I do with those?
I'll get into that.
Okay, sorry. I'm jumping the gun, aren't I?
Yeah, and then about 5% of clothing is fully unusable, and that's like really bad.
Okay.
But there are multiple organizations that'll take that. So Simple Recycling takes all 4 of those, and they sort through all 4 of those, and they're a really big organization in town. So in Franklin alone, at the Franklin DPW headquarters, there's a bin, and at the recycling center, there's a bin. And if you go on the Simple Recycling website, just simplerecycling.com, you can call them, and they can pick up your clothing.
Oh, okay.
And of course, most organizations, they want to give it to thrift stores, but Simple Recycling is really good. And there are a lot of other organizations that are kind of like that, but they're my main one because they're so available in Franklin.
Got it. Okay, didn't know that.
They used to do the pink bag program, actually.
Yeah.
You know,
that's gone now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Since COVID, I've gotten a lot of questions about that, where people said, like, where'd the pink bag program go? But yeah. But
that was a good one. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can get them to pick stuff up. You don't need a bag or anything. You can just call them, and they'll, you know, there's specific ways that you should put it out, and then they'll just show up and pick it up. And they're my big one, but there are a lot of organizations. If they're usually if they're a charitable organization, they want to give it to a thrift store so they can get the money and everything.
Okay, got it.
So that'd be like St. Vincent de Paul, and certain other places, Big Brother, Big Sister, so on and so forth. Which even if something doesn't seem like it could be sold, it might still be able to be.
Sure.
You know, but still, that's a really big thing, and I think Simple Recycling's like the big organization that I'd recommend.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful to me. Yeah.
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 And then some organizations will allow you to like directly give clothing to people in need, but that usually has to be new or gently used.
Sure.
Like I did a clothing drive with another Girl Scout. You're actually interviewing her next.
Yes.
And we collected clothing for a women's prison, and we had to get new or gently used stuff. Everything else, it's just Simple Recycling. And then, or like whatever else that we could give it to. But And then thrift stores can also have their own charitable causes, and charitable organizations are really big with this. You know, Vietnam Veterans, Epilepsy Foundation, Red Cross, etc.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
So that's helpful to sort of where we can go forward with all of this. Are you finding that people are responsive? I mean, I know you've been going out kind of speaking, haven't you, and talking to different groups. Did you say you were at the senior center? Did you tell me that?
Yeah, I was at a few senior centers.
Yeah.
I went to Plainville and Franklin, and I have North Attleboro, Bellingham, and another day at Franklin for anyone who missed.
That's great.
So, you know, if someone would like to go.
Yeah,
It's July 25th. I don't remember exactly what time it is. I think it's around 10 or 11. I don't have my Google Calendar up, but yeah.
That's good to know.
But there are flyers there, and I have a bin where I'm taking clothes and I'm giving it to Simple Recycling.
Excellent.
And you know, if you go to the presentation, you can learn bins to take your clothes to.
Nice.
So that's really nice. And you know, I've been talking at senior centers. I talked at the library, but only people I knew showed up.
Yes. Don't you hate when that happens?
Don't you hate when that happens? But you know, I got to talk to them. They didn't know about any of it, so I still helped people, and I got nice experience.
But that was the other thing I was going to ask you, because now I think about my own. I always reflect back to myself because I am self-focused, self-absorbed. But I just remember as a young person growing up, I was terrified of public speaking. I would, pretend I had to go to the bathroom to get out of it. I would be sick the night before if I had to give a speech. You must be, now that we think about this project and being part of Girl Scouts and some of the skills that you've learned, and can you speak to, when I think about the power of being in Girl Scouts and getting involved in this particular project, the skills that you've learned, can you speak about that? Because I think we really have to talk about the power of Girl Scouts, and I think people don't realize its importance. So can you speak a little bit about that? Some of the skills? Yeah.
Yeah, because anyone can tell you that I'm not like the most insanely sociable person on the planet. You know, I'm not great at public speaking. And I think one of the things I wanted to do with this project was improve that.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I have presentations. You know, most gold awards are like education-based that I've found. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but most of the ones that I've seen, people are focused on educating people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big thing, because a lot of younger people want to get better at, public speaking and talking to people, and especially if you have a cause you care about. Getting those public speaking skills down is nice. At my presentations, people have said like, hey, can you speak up? Can you do this? I've had my advisor and my father talk to me, and they've been like, don't do this, do this. And it's been really helpful. Yeah. Because, if you went to that first presentation I did at the library, I'm not as good at public speaking. And, also I'm working with coordination. Obviously I'm not like a perfectly organized person, but I have to email my team members and get everything in order and get all my flyers together, slideshow, everything.
But you think of all those life skills through this project. But here's one question. What I was going to ask you is, when I think about some of the bigger projects that I, again, back to myself, had to do, sometimes I would get so frustrated or I would want to give up. Did you go through times when you got frustrated with it, and how did you have to work through that? I'm just curious about a coping skill. Yeah, talk to us about that, because that's an important coping skill in life, because there are so many times that we get these obstacles. Talk about that a little bit.
There were always frustrating things. With every gold award, people are like, there's a moment where they're like, oh, why am I doing this? I'm so tired. And it's like, I already said I'm not like an insanely sociable public speaking person, and so I think that one of the biggest things was like, I need to get in front of a crowd and I need to tell them to put their clothes in a Bay State textiles bin and to put their kids in Girl Scouts,
Yes, that's right, yes.
Obviously that second one's more like implicit, but and it's like kind of a big thing that like I had to overcome that. And of course, there's also like, there's a lot of research in play. People would ask me questions. They'd be like, what do I do with yarn? What do I do with rugs, with pillows? I've gotten all these questions, and I've had to kind of research for that. And there isn't always a ton of information available. And sometimes like coordination is really hard. And that's part of where you get those skills from, those kind of like big moments where you're like, this is a failure, I need to improve from it. And I've had setbacks, but the big thing was that, when I was preparing for my Gold Award, I did a journey with my Gold Award advisor, and she started it by like giving us this like presentation we played like a little game, and she was like, you know, the big thing about a Gold Award is that you're going to have setbacks. You need to fix them. You know, I had multiple Gold Award ideas that I had before this, and I, you know, didn't do them because they either didn't work with the requirements or I couldn't do them straight up. You know, and I've like kind of come around and found some different way to do it.
But it isn't. It's that's such good advice too. It's like rather than when something fails, or is to say, okay, it happened. What do I learn from it? Where do I go from here? And that's what life is all about. I just have seen just too many people give up. It's too hard. I can't do it. They don't know how to cope. But so when I think about you, I think of you as not just doing this incredible project, but also being an ambassador sort of for Girl Scouts. And so if you were to say to young women why they should go into Girl Scouts, just one more time, why is it important, and why should maybe people consider it?
Okay, so I think that the really nice thing about Girl Scouts is that you're with a really big group.
Yeah.
Who all kind of have to be there.
Yep.
You know, you got this big group of people who all have their thing, and they want to share it, and they all want to do this thing or that thing, and you get to get really good collaboration skills and skills with working with a group. It's been a big thing because, you know, if you want to do something, you got to speak up about it, and you got to be there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, with my group, you know, as I got older, I had more of a role in things there. I had more of a role of saying, like, can we do this? Can we do that? Let's do this. And I think there's like a certain point in Girl Scouts where I was like, I didn't want to be there because I was so scared of talking to other people and getting my ideas out there. But really, I think it did give me the push to kind of say, this is what we're going to do. This is what I think we should do, you know? It's really helpful for developing those skills. And then aside from that, you know, today, a lot of people like to see commitment. And if you're in Girl Scouts for a really long time, Girl Scouts is a great organization. You can do a ton of things in it, you know, and, you know, you have so many opportunities, and it's great. And it's just such an awesome thing to see.
But you and I had talked earlier about this whole idea of college acceptances and what they're looking for. Colleges are looking for exactly that. When you think about commitment, sticking with something, finding a passion, being passionate about a project, not padding a resume with 87 million extracurricular things. Oh, that's going to make me look good. You are the student that they're looking for at the colleges. And speaking of that, you're going to be going to
Stonehill College.
Yes, and tell us a little bit about what you're going to be majoring in, and what you see, if you see down the line, what you see for yourself.
I'm majoring in political science, and I'm hoping to use that as kind of pre-law, and I would like to go to law school afterwards to study environmental law. You know, obviously, like, everything is kind of, you know, a lot of college students aren't really entirely sure of what they're going to do.
And you don't need to.
But this is kind of what I think is kind of the path that I'm interested in. And I really like the idea of, you know, studying something like that. And, you know, with environmental law, it's not always the, like, perfect dream that people imagine. You know, I'm going to save all these people and help everyone. But, you know, there is still a lot of good to be done within it.
Absolutely.
And I think I really like that. I'm studying political science because, you know, it's a big part of how we communicate and how we get things done. And I think to understand that is really nice. I you know, have like worked with politics before, not a lot, but, you know, I've looked at it before, and I think it's just something I'd really like to study.
Absolutely. No, you're going to do great. So before we conclude, is there anything else that you want people to know about this, that in terms of anything we didn't cover that would be important for people to know about your project, about your work, before we conclude?
All right, I think the biggest things in terms of helping with sustainability with textiles, you know, this really niche little area of it, is, you know, always just trying to make an effort. You don't have to shop secondhand every time you go to the store. You know, with some things you have to buy them new, or you want to buy them new, or whatever. But it's nice to try to make an effort to do that, and to kind of, you know, to try to sustainably dispose of your clothes all the time. We don't want to be taking up landfill space that could be used for other things. We don't want to be harming the environment with this. And about 85% of textiles could be reused. And so that's a really big thing. And so trying to make an effort for that is really good. You know, trying to make an effort to tell other people, to get it out there that this is what we want, because then that will happen, you know? It's really important that we make it heard that this is what we need to do. And so, you know, that's been a big part of this project, you know, making people know we should do this. And so that's kind of the big thing with that. So that is
an incredibly good summary, and I don't know how to thank you for this, for coming here today and taking time out of your schedule to be here. But it's such an important message that you're getting out, and again, it is being a role model. I know you're humble, and I don't want to embarrass you, but to be a role model to say this is what we could be doing out there, and the people who do this end up being the ones who have the most fulfilled and happiest lives. So. Thank you for coming here and sharing all of this with us, and best of luck at Stonehill, and
Thank you so much.
we'll be rooting for you. All right, I want to thank everybody for watching today. This was great. Thank everybody for watching today, and I want to thank Chris Flynn, our producer, Franklin Cable TV, for having a commitment to get important topics out to the public. You are a valuable asset in our community. So again, thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.